step one, pull them pedals. On this side of the bike, right, opposite the crank, it's all reverse threads. There's reverse threads on here, it's reverse threads on the pedal. 15 millimeter wrench usually takes care of this. Let's see if I can do this with one hand here. There we go. And I do all this stuff like I did when I was a kid. I'm not using a bike stand or anything. I'll do this. I can take all this out on the kickstand, and I'll have to do something with the brake at the end here. And I can tell that this coaster brake feels a little tight. That's an adjustment with the cone nut on there. And I'll just deal with that when I put it all back together. I'm just going to shoot a bunch of clips here and put it together. And by the way, these are metal, these pedals. I think they come off of the Schwinn, like some kooky Schwinn chopper from the 90s. Plenty of bite on them, and it's just nice that they're metal, and obviously they're rebuildable. You can take them apart and grease the bearings and everything. So pretty decent pedal actually. All right, you can hear the fan in the background. I must have built this bike at least 7 years ago when I was first getting back into building bikes. You have to understand, if you don't know, I was building bikes, no joke, 8 years old. I had my own tools I already accumulated from working, making money, 8, 9 years old. So yeah, I built bikes all the way through high school, and then got out of it until I got out of the Marines, and then I got into mountain biking. I bought a Trek 7000, had an aluminum frame in 1988, somewhere like that, and then really got into it again. I was an avid mountain biker for a long time, and then 7-8 years ago or so, I started getting back into this, thinking I'll just build myself, a clunker, actually, like I did as a kid. We didn't call them that on the East Coast at the time. So yeah, when I first did this, I was using this white lithium grease, which is not what I do anymore. I pretty much always only use the red and tacky on all the bearings. So wild, man. This is like a time capsule, this bike. I'm going to get into all the details on this too, with this frame, with the gusset and everything, because it's kind of special. It's had a lot of work put into it. We'll talk about that at the end. All right, this is the crank I pulled out, and you can see on here it says 165. Don't know why it doesn't want to focus. Okay. Oh yeah, you're just gonna have to trust me. All right, and on this one here, you'll see, let's see here, 175. All right. So to be sure, you always have to take the crank out, but you will see here, let's get you adjusted. You can see that the black one is longer. If you can't, I'll show it to you here. Line up where the pedals go in, and you can see at the bend here, the black one's longer. That's going to give you more oomph. These came off of a BMX. Most BMX bikes have like 175 millimeter or 180 millimeter cranks. Another thing, if you look here on this bearing, Hartford, that's Connecticut, and USA, if you find these old bearings and you inspect them and they're not cracked, you're in good shape there. That stuff's better than all the Chinese stuff that's coming out today. So no problem reusing that stuff. Alright, so again, Lucas Red and Tacky, and I'm going to show you a little trick here as far as inserting this crank. So first thing is, get some grease on the inside of this race here. I put a whole lot of grease in there. Just how I am. I heard a story about a guy who's a well-known dude. I think he's over in Glendale, does the bike thing, and somebody watched him build a bike, and the guy puts like one little dab. But yeah, so pack your bearing as well. Just really work it in there. There's a better way to do this, which really forces it, but I basically get it back on this side here, and I just force it in there really well, get it full. Peace of mind sort of thing. Yeah, I don't think you need to go that crazy. It is just a bicycle, but I don't know. I can't help myself. You're gonna get, it's a messy job, all right? Now, on this side here, what you'll do is you'll slide this over the arm here. All right. You don't put the bearing in there because if you do, you'll never get the crank to slide through. You need the extra room here. If you go to turn this and the bearing is in the race, it'll bind up on you. So you have to fit it through this way. And then you're golden. All right? We'll move on to the next side. Doesn't have to, it just has to rest here for now. Put this like that. And we're good for the moment. All right. Pack bearing here. Got your cone nut here. And remember, it is reverse thread. So just go ahead and spin this on. There's a little trick here. You'll notice the race is falling out a little here. There's no slop in it. It's just, there's not enough friction to really hold that in place, but all this will hold it there. In the past, if there's no play, like it won't move, if I move it up or down, that bearing cup is not moving. If I was ever bothered by it, I would just go ahead and tap the outside of the bottom bracket in like 3 spots. It's, you know, it's soft metal, so it's not a problem. But yeah, so what I'll do here, this is just my tip. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a way to do this. It has always worked for me. What I'll end up doing is I'll make that pretty snug right there, snugger than it should be. And then I'll put the washer on. All right. And then I'll put the outer nut on, and I'll get that pretty snug, but not super tight. And then after all that's on there and snug and tight, then I'll take a screwdriver and I'll get in this slot here and I'll tap it clockwise, which is theoretically loosening it. And what that's going to do is it's going to lock up everything from the washer to the back side of the nut. And then usually it gives you like the perfect amount of play that way. So as I was saying, first thing I'm going to do is get this, trying to wipe the grease off, right? Because it's a greasy mess, this stuff here. But I do find that this red and tacky is clean. It's clean grease. When you wipe it off your hands, you're in pretty good shape. If I get the sawdust off here. So I'm going to snug this pretty good. It's almost right. You want it to the point where you can feel the bearing in there, which is not what you want when it's finished. So you slightly over tighten it. I don't have a hammer with me, but I got this. That's probably about right there. Okay. Now I lost the washer. Here we go. It's got sawdust all over it. It's one of those things about having a wood shop. Look at the sawdust on the bottom. One of these days, somebody's going to look at one of my bills. They're going to be like, I wonder who built this. And they'll be like, oh, we know who built it. There's sawdust in this. It's probably that Mike Z guy. All right. Remember, again, reverse threads. Snug this decently, not crazy, right? And then come back in here. I'm going to back this out. Let's see what that feels like here. Yeah, that's good. That's real good. So I'm going to experiment with this real quick. It's been a while, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten it now. Oop, wrong way. Still good. Still good. A little snug. Come in here again. Tap this. Double check it. Hope this is all on camera. That feels pretty good. That feels pretty good to me, and we'll only know after we ride it. And if it loosens, it's not a big deal. That's kind of normal. Eventually you'll tap this and tighten it, and you'll eventually get it right. But when you're first assembling, it's kind of normal for things at times to back out on you. But if you do what I just did, you do that a couple times, you're going to get that perfect. All right? I got to lengthen the chain, I got to fix the cone nut on the rear brake, and I'm pulling this fork, the Sakisu fork, and I found a Diamondback fork that is black. We're going to call this the Black Beauty when it's all done. Alright, so this is like a skinny axle here, and I just realized I got to pull that out and grease those bearings as well. And with this fork, you'll see there's a fat hole here. It's designed for a fatter axle, so you need these types of washers that will fit in here and eat up that space. And I just so happen to be able to find those in a jar where I save stuff like this. And just briefly, I'll run you over here. This is some of my bike parts storage, so I'm pretty well organized. I've got all of these, I ate all this ice cream, by the way. I mean, so these are brake parts, caliper brake mounting parts. Those are bottom bracket bearings, some kickstand parts in there, some brakes. These are the brake clamps for your coaster brakes, some quick releases up here. Everything is pretty well organized, and a lot of stuff is also put into containers that are the same, like Schwinn. There's a lot of just Schwinn specific stuff here. You know, and like these here, this is seat hardware. So I try to organize this stuff so I can find. Here's a headset. These are all Schwinn headsets I have in here that are complete in containers like this. And it's important for you to do stuff like this. Here are bearing cups and headsets. These are complete with bearing cups and everything. Complete headsets in here. So if you're building a bike, you know, I can go over there. It takes a little time to find it sometimes, but it's all usually right there. In those red boxes, like the one that says Worksman on it here, these are stems. Those are 21 millimeter stems. There's 22 millimeter stems underneath there. Up on the shelf behind here, there's just boxes of things. They're pretty well organized. A lot of pedals in here and all kinds of good stuff. Forks I'm keeping and all. You guys have seen this stuff before. Anyhow, it's important to be somewhat organized. So when you do a job like this, it goes a little bit faster. But again, this ain't a bike shop, so. Okay, so the races in this front hub are plastic. I've never seen that before. And so I've got a bunch of headset bearings in here. Look like they're the right size. I'm gonna go ahead and free ball this front end here. Alright, so those there look to be about the right size, and there's more here. So I'll peel what I need out of here and out of these, and we'll go ahead and grease those, clean this out, and then I'll pack that with grease, and I'll individually place those, and it'll be a better hub. Alright, I recommend a screwdriver or something that has like a magnet on the end of it. This really helps on this kind of job. You notice long sleeves. The mosquitoes have come out all of a sudden. They've discovered I'm here, and I am their favorite meal. Bizarre, I'm telling you. So get some ton of grease in here. As I pack both sides now. It's like a kooky game of mousetrap in this shop. You knock one thing over, you move something, you know, 3 other things fall over. You just learn to accept it and don't let it bother you. All right. So you put the grease in. Should be kind of self-explanatory or common sense for you. That is so that you've got something to hold the bearings in place. I don't know how many this is going to take, but I'm guessing about 10 on here. So let's fit these in here. I think there's a mosquito in my ear. Oh my god. Annoying. Okay. Make sure they're all kind of sitting in that little race area evenly. You can't see it very well, I don't think, on film. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to peel the bearings out of these stupid plastic. I've never seen this before. That's just horrible. Now, look, a lot of you guys, if you're watching this is something you're into, you might not have these supplies on hand, these parts, but every time you see a bike that you can get for next to nothing, even if it is a cheap bike, if you strip it down to the bearings, you're going to find that you've got extra parts laying around when you need them. Okay, well, that might be one too many. Let's see what happens if I fit the axle in there. Looks okay. No, I'm going to pull one out. It's okay if it's not. There we go. We'll just do that. That'll be better. I'm going to go ahead and pack the other side. Then I'll put this wheel together. Now I'm on to peeling out of here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'm not going to let you waste time watching me here. I'll just keep working. All right. That is nice. Worked out perfect. I'll show you in a sec. All right. That's what you call perfect. I got a little saying, perfect is good enough. All right, let's put this together with the new fork on the frame. All right, so this here says Akisu on it. I don't know if you can read that on the screen, but it does. So that's cool. It's a decent fork. This head tube had that white lithium grease in it again. You can see some on there, which, yeah, not great. Not great. But it's a good thing I'm doing all this, right? This has needed to happen for quite some time. I'll tell you, I built this bike as a bike for my house in Arizona. It was my uncle's house. It's in a little town called Huachuca City. And then my uncle died, and then my mom acquired it, and now it's mine. It's really mine and my sister's. The house is in my name, and we're going to make a determination about it. But this bike was there. It was hanging in the garage so that I had a bike whenever I went there. Something to ride, And I took it out of there because too many people were coming and going in the house after a while, and I didn't trust it there anymore. And the bike I did leave, somebody took it and rode it around, left it outside, and got it kind of ratty. It was that green frame, that small green frame varsity clunker I built. Chad has a blue frame for me right now that I'm going to be building soon. So yeah, anyhow, let me keep working on this. Well, she looks good, and I thought I was done, but I add some links to this chain, and right here you'll see it's pretty tight, the chain. If I crank this a little bit, so now you see how loose it gets. I've had this problem before, and it's almost always an issue with the bearing cup. So the bearing cup on these bottom brackets. Sometimes they're, I mean, I'm using old parts, right? Sometimes they're just worn unevenly, so I got to replace it with another one, put it all back together, and then I'll have a consistent chain. Ask me how I figured that one out. Years ago, I had a bike like that. I think I've run into this twice. And I replaced all kinds of things, and I thought it was the sprockets and all that. And I eventually discovered that's what it is. So now I know what that is, and now I got to deal with that real quick. So much for getting any other work done today. I went over to my client's house this morning, did a couple things for her, went home and ate, rode the bike here, figured I'll knock this out in an hour or so. And it's 2 o'clock now. I think I got here at 11. I've been working on this all this time. But brakes are working, the fork's on, had to rebuild that hub, as you guys know. I put a quick release on the seat post, and yeah, now I'm doing this. So hang on a second. We'll get it. All right, so I think the problem really was the way the bearing was sitting on the race on the back side of this. I went through all this stuff here and just kept trying to fit. I found this thing here of all bearings. I'm going to go ahead and put this on now and see if it works, and if it does, I'll be lucky, I suppose. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to have to find another race off of another crankset, I think. But and that's why I pulled this old GT one down, and I've got a bunch of them up here, and I've got some Schwinn setups where I could pull the races off of those if the threads work. So we'll see. Let's see what happens here. This is just how it goes, people, with this sort of thing. Okay, I think I got it, but holy Toledo. All stinking day. What is it? It's coming up on 3:30 here. Wow. So I replaced the bearing cup, I replaced the bearings, I tried free balling it, I replaced the cog on the wheel, I put another wheel on, I changed the chain, I got it a lot better. I'm about to take her on a test ride here. So I'm going to go do that right quick, and I'm going to clean up, and I'm going to come back, I'm going to do a talk up on this bike. Boy, it does look good though. Alright, hang on a second. Alright. A little shot of this here. This is, you got to wear the long trousers for LA, but you got to pull them up when you come. Feels good. I got people walking down the sidewalk. Gonna do some bunny hops and a power slide for you, but let's not get too crazy. Give me a minute or a second. So it's interesting. I had this thing listed. I'll give you a couple different shots with, try a different background here. Now I might as well put it in the sun. I don't like doing that normally, but let's just do that real quick. All right. So as I was saying, I lost the entire day to this bike. Replaced the fork, rebuilt the front hub and the wheel, rebuilt the bottom bracket, replaced the crankset with 175 millimeter and a 48 tooth front. There was a 44 on there before. I'm still running those Schwinn chopper pedals. Now, this is a Cleveland Welding Company frame that I came across probably about 8 years ago or so. It sat around, I built it, I did different things, and then I eventually brought it over to Chad. I hit this with some WD-40, I didn't wipe it down enough. But I made these gussets. Well, I did the templates for these gussets. I have two of these frames. The other one's a regular 21 gear mountain bike. But I had Chad braze those in, that when they were in for strength. I didn't need him to do anything down here. He had a little bit of brazing there. He had some brazing here on the rear dropouts, put it in his jig, brazed this up a bit. Frame's super tough. It's what you want if you want to beat on something. Of course, these it's a Shimano D-type coaster brake in good shape. I'm sure I repacked that a while ago. The rims would buff out nicely. It's got this 4-bolt embossed Sagino crown. Stem, I've seen these things go for a few $100s lately, which is wild. These are old, I think they're Yamaha motorcycle motocross bars. Got the old brake on here. This brake actually stops really well, caliper brake. Nice headset. Again, you saw what I did here. So I re-greased the headset, changed all that out. It's got these chubby style Schwinn grips on there. One of my favorites. It's running the old Messinger, I think it is, saddle on here. My lighting's not great. I don't know how the sound is either. I put the quick release on the seat post there. These are all old parts. Don't bother cleaning them up. But you guys can see what you go through trying to get a bunch of old parts and make them work. And make everything, you know, function correctly. It's not an easy thing to do. That's why people say, Klunkin ain't easy. I'll also say, boy, oh boy, black is beautiful. Look at that thing. That is a black beauty right there. So I'm excited. When I just did that little pedal around the driveway, it sure did feel good. It felt a lot better than it did on the ride over, and it felt pretty good on the ride over. It was a lot of work, though. I mean, this is a whole day. It's 4 o'clock now. Just love that. I just put the Oxblood Zulu style strap. It was a NATO. I cut the bottom off of it and put it on that green bund. But yeah. So it's got the, I found the original sticker, which somehow some of it peeled off here. I'm not happy about that. That's your Cleveland Welding Company water transfer. I got the Mr. Tick sticker on here because he did so much work to this frame. I think the sprocket suits the bike better as well. Right angle for you. I'm hoping this will be the shot that when I load it up to YouTube, it'll just naturally pick this for the screenshot thumbnail there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I sure didn't. I mean, gee whiz, man. This is the thing, you know. I had this thing listed for $1,500. I pop it up from time to time. I'm actually glad I didn't sell it because I needed to do those things. I thought it was okay. I don't know what was going through my head back then when I did this thing. I had to be 6 or 7 years ago. I built this. I had it in Arizona. I rode it around there a lot. I think I swapped the wheels out a couple times and everything seemed to be okay. And it's just been hanging in my bedroom collecting dust for 2 or 3 years now. Could be 3 years. Just sitting there, and I would just list it once in a while for the hell of it. But now it is nice. Anyhow, I don't know if I want to sell it. I think I'm gonna ride it around for a bit. But if you're interested, hit me up. So you would have to find one of these frames, and this one, when I got it, it was, you know, not in great shape. And I took all the paint off, brought it to Chad, had all the custom work done. You've probably got $500 in the frame of work done to it, not including what the frame cost. And then you got this nice old Diamondback Akisu fork on there. I mean, the wheels, nothing crazy about the wheels. They function nice. You know, they're not, you know, BMX wheels, but I built this more as a street cruiser, cruise the strand sort of thing. Again, who knows what you can get for the stem. People are always after the bars. But just the amount of time it takes to get something like this dialed in. It's one thing to make it look right, it's another to make it function well. Anyhow, I hope you guys get a kick out of this video. I mean, this would have been a 5-hour video if I just had this running the whole time. And I didn't take any breaks. And the only break I took was looking for parts when I had to, which I had to. So I'm excited about riding it home. I feel a little bad. I lost the whole day of woodworking, but I'll be here tomorrow early, all day, working. I'm still on milling. But let's stick on this.